I was gonna ask what your favorite Kanye West album of all time is. Is it College Dropout?
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, I think my favorite Kanye West album, and this is like niggas gonna be like, what? My favorite Kanye West album is Watch the Throne.
Okay.
And it's for, like, as an artist, you know, and then especially looking at the documentary, you see Kanye West's journey, like, to get to that level.
Right.
So, like, we didn't even get to watch him become as big as Jay-Z was. We just got to watch him being like, yeah, these niggas not giving me money for this record deal. I got to go out and do it myself. I got to make this shit work. I got to get there. But the truth about it is, it's not easy ever to surpass your predecessor in anything, whether it be money, whether it be music, whether it be fame, it doesn't matter. And Kanye West created that moment for himself with more than writing and more than beats and more than being in the studio. It's the things that he did outside of, again, being in the music industry and being in the fashion industry that brought him to the level where, and then it's also about how I believe that his trajectory even changed, not just because he made Watch the Throne, but because of how much time he put into Watch the Throne.
Right.
You can see the concerts, you could see the album, you could hear the music, and you could tell that Jay-Z and Kanye West went super hard on that shit.
Right.
And Jay-Z is my favorite rapper ever. But Kanye West went harder than Jay-Z on Watch the Throne. Kanye West, expression, production, show-wise, rapper-wise, it's like all, and that is what Kanye West is all about. Give me the whole cake. You think I can't eat this whole cake? I'll eat this part today, I'll eat this part in an hour, and I'll eat the half tomorrow. Like, that's like how he thinks. And I think that there is, again, a deeper importance to that representation for other Black children or other Black kids than there is in any money flaunting or anything like that. Like, again, that's something that's priceless.
Right.
His personality is priceless.
For sure.
Yeah.
What do you think? You know, it's mental health. May is
yes,
mental health
awareness month.
Because, you know, he was vocal. They showed his struggles at the end of the documentary.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And just like, you know, there's a lot of antics that come with, you know, people think he wilds out when he drops an album.
Yeah. I'll start it off with this. I think that, and it's very important that we say it on Vlad TV, biggest misconception is that mental health is something that once you start discussing it, you should go see a therapist. Or everybody, just one more time for the people in the back, every fucking body has mental health.
Right.
Every single person. Everybody that you see.
Agreed.
And we all go through something day by day that pushes us back from the place that we want to be in. It could be anything from it's raining today to my coffee top wasn't all the way on and it's spilt on my laptop and now I have to clean this shit up, or to somebody passing away. Every single day, we have to struggle to keep our mental health intact. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do that, whether it be exercising or it be stepping away from the internet or stepping away from the computer or trying to figure out the right people to surround you so that you can grow and express yourself. You never stop growing. You know what I'm saying? Just like you never stop having problems, you should always be trying to push forward and push towards being the best person you could be. So I think that, like, just on that note, there's a lot of us that have mental health and we don't even prescribe or subscribe to our own mental health, right? Kanye West is a whole different level of mental health because there's been only a few people, I think, since the span or the invention of technology that have been as famous as Kanye West. So there's a different level of stress and anxiety that comes with that. And I don't think you have to be a rocket science to figure that shit out. Like, I don't get, like, what the fuck? Like, I don't get that many likes. I don't get that many, and I would imagine that having all those things and still wanting to have what he does want to have, which is a family, which is success, which is love and fulfillment with the people around him, that shit gets hard.
Right.
I would imagine that shit gets hard. And then also, just to say it again, the reason why I love Kanye is because he's not and has never been all about money. He's always been so balanced. So it's also when you're trying to be a fashionista, you're trying to be a music rap star, you're trying to drop documentary series, you're trying to do world tours, at some point in that, you're going to scream. You're going to get upset.
Right.
And I also think that they're based off the stereotypes that have been presented since the earliest days. And I talk about this on my new album, D.W. Griffith. Y'all should look up who D.W. Griffith is. He's the dude that made A Birth of a Nation, which was America's first film that was shown in the White House and depicted a lot of negative stereotypes about African Americans that have been perpetuated not just through hip hop, but through movies, through mass media outlets. Every time you turn on the news and you see some kid that's 13 and they're making him out to be a terrorist or to look as if he, you know, all of those situations, I think Kanye West literally is like the disruption from those. And he's somebody that has always controlled his narrative and always been very in front of how people are going to see things. You know what I'm saying? And always, even if he doesn't know exactly how people are going to see things, still rushing to put the truth out there. So like, I have so much love for the guy and everything that he does. And I think that other people also, do and love it as well.
Definitely, for sure. Man, well, 2013, you dropped Speed Racer music video.
Yeah.
You released was your debut project freshman year, first semester?
Or no, my debut project was called
It
was called The Taylor Bennett Show.
In high school.
Yeah, in high school.
Wow.
So I was like super duper young when I did that.
That same year, Chance dropped Acid Rap.
Yes.
What was it like seeing, you dropped, your brother dropped, that project blew up?
Yeah.
That was...
It was like it was really interesting, man. As anybody that I'm sure watching this, all of a sudden, people start treating you different because they think you have a lot of money. Like that's like for anybody that like sees anybody blow up, I don't think that person ever has as much money as you think they have. But what you do start getting is you start getting a lot of free shit, like brands, opportunities. So like, going in different spaces and places and people talking to you like all nice and shit. Like everybody gets really, really nice around you. So like, doesn't matter if it's your family or your friends or any of that shit. Everybody's like, oh yeah, like how can I help you? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. And you love it. Like I think as anybody else does, like it's very exciting. But then as you get older, as you get into whatever industry it is, you start to realize that certain people might be saying things to you, or most of them are, because they see some way they can grow with you or they can stay with you while you grow. So, I mean, it was a really interesting thing. I think it was a really a great learning experience just for all the business that me and Chance will do moving forward. Because being independent, I saw so much music and I gained so many different relationships and got a very institutional understanding of the music industry and what it's been and where it's going. And that's some shit that, just like Kanye's personality, is priceless. So.
Did you have big labels call in?
Of course.
Okay.
I went to different meetings. I was just saying this earlier. I won't say which label it was, but I remember being like 18 or 17 and working on Restoration of an American Idol and getting different offers and flying to New York or getting flown out to New York and put up in super nice hotels in LA as well. And, going to these labels and you walk in and it makes you, and this is what I want everybody, because you never know when you're going to get famous, to remember, is that it makes you feel small.
Okay.
And that's part of the game. As you walk in and you see this big ass artist on this plasma TV screen and you don't even know who they are, but it looks like they're getting money. And then you walk into this little fucking loft area and there's fucking 75 people sitting on computer screens. And you're like, what the fuck? And then I go upstairs and I go into this really nice office and they're like, would you like some water? Would you want to see this? Would you want to see that? And then you sit down and they play your music. They tell you you're going to be the biggest fucking artist of all fucking time and that nobody has ever created or they've heard anything fucking like that shit. And there'll be one guy that's sitting at the end of the table and he just won't say anything. And then you leave. And then they call you and they're like, so what are we going to do? Are we going to work this shit out? As I got older, those walls that I felt like were so strong and all those 75 people that were working on those offices, Not only did I see most of them leave in a matter of months and go to some other label or distro company or publishing firm or fucking agency or whatever the fuck they went to go do, because they were most likely even just freelancing on certain projects there. They didn't even really work there. That's some shit I didn't know. Now those walls feel like styrofoam. Especially with platforms like United Masters. Shout out to one of my favorite mentors and good friends, Steve Stout. Or there's a TuneCore, there's a Ditto. Shout out to Lee Parson, one of my good friends in the UK that has a distribution company that, services Stormzy and, like a lot of different platinum artists as well. When I found out about agencies and the fact that I didn't need a deal to get a booking agency or to get shows or need a deal to create merchandise, and I found out people that could do fulfillment or that could do embroidery for me, or just like shout out to Champion, I'm on this amazing tour, Be Yourself, Be a Champion
love
tour.
It.
And they could help me with my merchandise or even help me partnership to do larger marketing strategies than any label would ever spend the time trying to create for me. And, it's just really a big numbers game. So it's like I definitely went to see a lot of labels and I had a lot of different offers, but I just want everybody to remember that's some bullshit, man. Like the shit that, and I'm not just saying those guys at those labels, like there's an industry that surrounds like best question or best situation. Whenever anybody, doesn't matter if they're black, white, gay, straight, says, I want to be a musician or I want to be an actor or I want to be an athlete, any logical person in that room probably looks over and says, well, who's going to manage you? And I think there's an issue with that. Like, I think that when somebody creates a sandwich, for example, right? They know exactly what you're going to do with it. Like, you know what you want to do with that sandwich. You want to eat that shit. Maybe you want to save it for later, but you know what you want to do with it. I don't think anybody makes a sandwich and they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Where is this going to go? But for some reason, that's how people think when it comes to their talents. And I do believe it's a very strong pushed idea that you cannot be a musician and also do the business. But I encourage you guys to look at the life of Michael Jackson. I encourage you guys to look at the life of Sam Cooke. I encourage you guys to look at the life of Smokey Robinson, of Freddie Mercury, of Ray Charles, of some amazing, amazing artists that ended up keeping everything.
For sure.
I
want to touch on real quick, 2014, you and Chance dropped Broad Shoulders. I think that year there was an incident.
No.
No?
No.
We're not touching on the incident? Copy. I just want to bring up...
You know why? Because it's all about positivity. And sometimes I think that everything has a time and a place, but it's also about making sure that you place those times and settings in the correct manner.
I hear you. 2015, just had to touch on it because it's a big celebration for your family, yourself. I know you dropped, Broad Shoulders, Dancing in the Rain was a big song. That same year, Chance drops Coloring Book, which wins 3 Grammys. So how is it?
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
So to go back to the independent distribution services and stuff like that, in 2014, I was introduced to a guy named Chris Mooney. And he had this company, because in 2014, I was making Broad Shoulders, right? And the guy that I was making this project with, the reason why I also had no samples, he was an amazing producer. He actually lives out in LA right now. His name is Ludlow. Shout out to him. He produced the whole
I think I've heard of him.
album. He's really dope and he's really good. And he's done some big records. He started with Slim Shady in Detroit. Super dope dude. Basically, when we were almost done, like I want to say like 80% done with the project, he's like, yo, I want to take this and shop it around in LA for a distribution deal. I was like, no. I was like, I have this independent thing going on. My brother's independent. We got to stay with this. He's like, well, if we don't get a distribution deal, we're not going to be able to really magnify or blow out of proportion how good this album is. And it was such a good album. And I told him, I was like, you got a point. He was like, if you figure out a way that we can get this stuff on iTunes and Spotify, which at that time was basically unheard of, he was like, then we could just put it out like the way you want to put it out. So me and my 16-year-old friend, Joseph KB, shout out to him, amazing guy, very, very smart. Got on Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, we got on Google, and we searched self-distribution platforms. And the first thing that came up was this place called TuneCore. So we started looking at, I think at that time it was either Facebook, I don't even know if LinkedIn was there yet. Found this guy named Chris Mooney and hit him up. I'm like, hey man, we're trying to work on this project and distribute this album. He was like, man, I got you. I know what you guys are doing. I see the Bennett's, blah, blah, blah. Let's work on this album. did the distribution with TuneCore in 2014. They had all these conversations. I also learned at that point that I needed to reach out to the DSPs individually. So I had like small connections at Spotify and Apple, but I reached out to both of them and got like amazing placements for my record. Like next to What a Time to Be Alive, I believe, in some G-Eazy album. Crazy, blew me away.
Right.
So once I got that, not only was I doing that, but I had also figured out in this independent scheme against the major labels now how to distribute and put your music out and make money off of it without signing any deal. And I'll never forget, I went to my brother and I was like, Chance, you have to distribute this record. You have to figure out, what you're going to do with this record. And I believe what was crazy is that prior to that, he had already used TuneCore for a record called Juice, which was his biggest first blow-up record.
Yeah.
And because there was samples on it, I believe that the Beatles estate had reached out and asked him to take it down, or maybe Elton John, his people. But basically, from that conversation, Chance went on to put Coloring Book through TuneCore, which is the way that they started the conversations with the Grammys of a certain amount of sales or a certain amount of streams should count towards a certain amount of units, because I guess at that point you had to have a certain amount of units to even qualify as the Grammys, and they weren't even counting streaming. And by doing that, Chance was able that year to take home 3 Grammys. But that all came from the first discussion about independent distribution. So crazy how these things add up and then turn into something you never fathom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it holding those Grammys?
It was crazy, man. I still, like, when I get a chance and I'm at Chance's house, I'm like, let me pick this shit up.
Yeah, right.
It's super dope, man. Super fucking dope.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it.